All right, 94.9 WDKB. I'm Sean Lowe, and this is yet another edition of our Small Business Development Center business structure. We have a lot of webinar series that we've been doing, and this is yet another one. This is called Exit Strategy, and I'm joined by Harriet Parker from the Small Business Development Center, and she is a guest. Harriet, I'm going to let you introduce our guest today, and then I'm going to let you get right into your presentation today.
Sounds good. Thanks, Sean. We have Adela Toy, who is the former owner of Crystal Life Technology, a retail shop in Geneva, Illinois. And Adela is going to be sharing some of her experiences with how she exited and sold her business. So we'll be asking her some questions as we share some of the material today.
Right. All right, sounds good. We're going to let you get your presentation together there, and once you share your screen, we'll throw it up here and let everybody else check that out as well.
Okay, let me go ahead and do that. Okay, should be, can you see it?
Yep, there we are.
Awesome, great. Okay, so we're going to talk about exit planning today. And first, I just want to really briefly give some background on the Small Business Development Center, who we are, what we do. Our program is grant funded. We get our funding from the Small Business Administration and the Department of Commerce, as well as matching funds from our host, Waubonsee Community College. Our main office is located in the downtown campus of the college in downtown Aurora. And we also have a partnership with Kishwaukee College. And Dr. Jacques Samis, who may show up at some point here, but he is in charge of the program in the DeKalb County area. So works with a lot of businesses as in part of our Kishwaukee partnership. So basically what we do is we offer unlimited one-on-one business assistance to entrepreneurs and small business owners at no cost. So regardless of where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, whether you're just starting somewhere in the ownership process, or like we're talking about today, looking to retire or exit from your business, we can provide assistance with that. We also offer a variety of small business workshops as well, but our bread and butter is primarily our one-on-one business assistance. Let me kind of jump into this here. So as I mentioned, we're joined by Adela Toy, who's the former owner of Crystal Life Technology in Geneva, Illinois. And this is a picture of the celebratory day when Adela sold her business to 3 of her employees. So Adela, if you want to just take a minute and tell us a little bit about Crystal Life Technology, what the business is.
Sure. Crystal Life, I founded Crystal Life Technology 25 years before I sold it. And in that time, evolved it as a metaphysical store where people can come and have experienced staff members who can teach them about stones and energy jewelry and all kinds of products. And we offered top quality products at a moderate price with a lot of personal service. So our mark is the personal service. And we're in Geneva for about 15 years, an integral part of that community, and have lots of customers coming from all over the Chicagoland area.
Great, thanks a lot. And I'm going to kind of flip to my next slide and then come right back to you, Adela, on some questions as far as how you prepare your business for being able to retire. So first of all, what I want to share here is a really important statistic, which is called out on the side of this slide, and that is that for many, many business owners, about 90% of a business owner's wealth is tied up in their business. So that's where their wealth is coming from. Unfortunately, however, only about 25% of businesses ever sell, and 50% of businesses that start the process of selling don't complete the deal because it falls apart in the due diligence stage. So really, I want to just share a couple reasons why that happens. And number one reason is that the business owner is not able to find a qualified buyer for the business. And this a component of that is the second point on this slide, and that is that business owners wait until the last minute to start trying to determine how they're going to transition that business to a new owner. When people think about exiting from their business, and especially small business owners, because really it's their baby, is that they don't really want to exit until they get to that point where they really want to exit. And so unfortunately, they don't do a lot of planning leading up to that point. There's some other points on the slide here that kind of highlight the other reasons that businesses don't transition. But I just wanted to take a minute, Adela, and ask you, how long before you actually started the transaction to sell the business did you start to think about what that exit was going to look like?
Well, in my case, like most of the people you just talked about, Harriet, I was it was my baby, and I was set to be there until I kicked the bucket. But I had a little health scare, and that made me realize that I didn't really want to wait till I kicked the bucket. I wanted to have some fun. So at that point, I worked with a wonderful business consultant that I had gone to Harriet, and Harriet had lined me up with. She lined me up with a business transaction merchant who ran me through what would be involved in selling a business and all the steps that were needed that I had to assemble. So without the two of them, those experts, I wouldn't have known what to do.
Great.
Between them, I came up with a good plan, and then COVID hit. So I was hit by a double whammy there. So
yeah. And when did you start to think that the employees that you had might be the best approach to selling that business to them?
Well, I wanted to sell to people who knew the business and who understood the clientele, because frankly, the business wouldn't succeed if people came in for help and there was nobody there to help. Mm-hmm. So with the business expert, I had explored selling to a newcomer, selling to somebody who had no experience, selling and having somebody just buy my product and, sell it off, all those different options. And I couldn't do any of them. At the same time, I wanted to be good to my staff. So I had spoken to them and said, if you stay on till I sell, we'll give you a bonus. And at that point, a number of them came to me individually wanting to buy the business. So they approached me. And then none of them were able to do it on their own. So that's when I went into, I'm looking at legacy as much as I'm looking at selling. And then I went to work with them to figure out how we were going to do it. And in that, the services of Harriet were absolutely essential. I told them, go to Harriet and make sure she teaches you what you need to know. I'm not involved, and you can get a good understanding from her.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump in here, Harriet and Adela, and that was the one thing I was going to ask you about your business. It seems like a very specialized type of business. It's not like it's a pizza restaurant or something like that, where generally a lot of people, if you've had restaurant experience, you could go in and run something like that. But if you don't understand this particular product, it would be very difficult to walk in, somebody with no experience, to take over your business and run it.
Yeah, that's what we found out from people who explored it, and then realized when they went in to look at all that was involved to learning how to operate it and all the ins and outs, it was overwhelming to a number of them. At the same time, I always ran my business in as communal a manner as I could. So each of my staff had certain tasks that they were very good at. So three of them, one who knew the energy work, one who knew the finances, and one who knew how the website worked, got together, and they had that proper combination to make a good, solid team.
Great, thank you. And I don't know, Sean, if you want to let Jack join us. I think he's hanging out in the waiting room or something. But
If I saw him, I would let him in. I do not see him.
Okay, then we'll not worry about it. So anyway, Adela mentioned, several of things that are on this slide: unexpected health issues, and other reasons why businesses kind of sometimes wait too long. And fortunately, I think Adela did a really great job of having the business in condition to be able to make that transition. So, obviously one of the first things you want to start thinking about is who's going to buy my business, because, and we'll talk about the various resources here in a minute that business owners use. Adela mentioned a couple of them, but, you have to, you as the business owner need to be the one thinking about who is a likely candidate to purchase my business. So, a lot of people will engage a business broker. They'll throw their listing up there and just hope that somebody comes out of the woodwork. Occasionally that happens, but a lot of times it doesn't. And so you as the business owner need to be an active, actively looking for who could possibly buy the business. So, is it an outside third party? It could be a supplier, a customer, a competitor. A lot of times looking for a competitor to buy the business is a good option. Family member or employee. And then obviously the last choice on that is just to close the business down, which, that does happen a lot more often than it should. But obviously we can find somebody that wants to take that business over. That's the best option. So as Adela mentioned, a couple of business advisors, I wanted to just list out what are some of the resources that you're likely to need as you go through the process of selling your business. So the business advisor is a great place to start, especially with the Small Business Development Center. As a free resource, we can really kind of give you some preliminary guidance on what to expect the process to look like, things you can do to prepare. Others on this list, some you may or may not need. Valuation expert, depending on the size of the transaction. You may need to have an accountant do a valuation on the business. You may need to have a certified valuation expert do that valuation. That's a more expensive proposition and not always needed, but it depends a lot of times. If the bank is going to be involved in the financing the transaction, then that may be needed. Possibly an accountant, almost certainly an attorney. Financial planner is especially in a situation where you need to know if you're exiting from your business, what financial situation you are in as you're going through the transaction. The banker, the business broker possibility, and then also possibly some marketing assistance. And I don't know in this list, Adela, if there are how many of those you used throughout the process.
I used quite a few because I owned essentially a rock shop. I'm not a financial person. So
right.
First thing I needed was to find out what somebody would actually pay for my business. So I went down that list. Again, I can't emphasize enough how important Harriet and her team was to me, because anytime I had a question, I didn't know what to do, I could always call Harriet and she would immediately connect me with someone out of her list that was right for me. It might not be for another person, but she knew who was right for me from having worked with her for years and years. And I think that's essential too. to make use of all these amazing services that she has.
Great, thank you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about preparation, and then Adela, maybe you can share a little bit some of the things that you had to do or did do to kind of get yourself ready for all of this. So again, as I mentioned, you want to start. It's never too early to start thinking about this. The better you run your business over the life of the business, the better your valuation is likely to be. So you want to make sure that you have a good set of books. There's a lot of small businesses will be doing some transactions in cash, so off-book cash transactions for various reasons. And all I can say is that while that might minimize your tax liability, it does not help your business valuation. So you really can only take money out of your business once. And so I would say that you want to eliminate those cash transactions, especially if a banker is going to be financing the deal. Because if you can't prove on your financial statements and tax returns the revenue that you are claiming to have generated in the business, you will not be able to get backing to finance that transaction for that value. So you want to make sure your tax returns are current. Profits are really important. Again, a lot of times we are looking for ways to deduct as many expenses as possible to minimize tax liability, but having profits is going to improve your value. And you'll hear me say that multiple times probably throughout this presentation. You want to look at your inventory and your assets to make sure things are in good working order. Is your inventory current and saleable? Because someone that's going to buy the business is not going to want to go through and look at inventory and say, okay, about 20-30% of this inventory I could never sell. So you don't want to assume that you have value in inventory that's not saleable. Documentation of business operations, so processes and procedures, have them documented. That's really going to help to assure a successful transition to the new owner. It also helps in making the business appealing to a buyer. Look at your systems. Is your technology up to date? And then the last thing is just to assess your personal financial situation so that you know what your retirement needs are personally as you look to put a price tag on your business. So Adela, any of this sound familiar to you?
Yes, I think what I would advise people is I had really just been configuring my business for a long haul going in, which included buying a lot of stone inventory because stones only keep going up in price. And if I have storage, I can get a better value over time. And I had been investing a lot in updated website technology. So when it came time to sell, I was faced with all these upfront advantages I had brought in. If I had to do it again and I had time, I would sell off a lot of my inventory and place a hold on any development for the future technologies that I was working on. So I think it's important to position yourself and your product, your inventory, and all the aspects of your business so it looks good on paper. I knew it was good, and I had all these things going forward, but on paper it looks a little different from the reality, and I think that's important to know.
Yep. Yeah, and absolutely. I think that's really a good point about, things about your business that sometimes aren't reflected on paper, but you want to be able to put your best foot forward on what you're showing to someone else who may not have insights into some of those things.
Mm-hmm. And there's another thing that I ended up doing because I was selling in the middle of COVID and I wanted out. people that we had potentially lined up as soon as COVID came backed out because nobody knew what was happening. And I actually worked with my staff to finance, to do the financing. And I would seriously encourage people, if they're selling a small business, to think about their staff, think about the long-term responsibilities of the staff, and consider that as an option, because you then have legacy and you have people committed to your vision that you want to see go on.
Right. Yeah. And I think especially with if you're looking at employees taking over the business, the better that they are, the more knowledgeable they are about the overall business operation, the better positioned they are, but also they can see the benefits of taking over that business if they have those insights.
And then I stayed on for 3 months after as an unpaid consultant to help them with that transition, which I think is very important.
Great. Awesome. Okay. So now once we get a little bit shorter term, and so we're already have identified, what we want to do here. We want to prepare something that is going to market the business. So something like a sell sheet. For example, if you want to check out, there's a website called Biz by Sell, which is one of multiple business for sale listing sites. And so you can see some good examples of what a sell sheet looks like. Basically, it's going to include some financial information about the business, a little bit of story about the business. Think about if you're selling your house, right? I mean, it's not just the square footage and the number of bedrooms and bathrooms, but it's what makes the house the home. And so we want some story information, pictures, where's the location. Those are things that are going to go into a sell sheet. So when you have someone that you think might be an interested candidate, you have that marketing piece to put up for them. Identifying a prospective buyer, determine the asking price, so get your valuation done. And again, even as a starting point, you may be required to do certified valuation expert, but initially, I would say most accountants can do a pretty decent job of giving you a general valuation of the business as a starting point. And then I would just say another thing that's really important is be prepared and willing to negotiate. One of the things that I see happen over and over again is that the business owner determines that a certain amount of money that they want for that business, and then they just are not willing to budge on that. And a lot of times, as you saw the statistic in my first slide, which is how many deals fall apart, a lot of times that's where it happens, is where there's just not enough the negotiation that takes place. And as Adela mentioned, consider seller financing. So I think that most business owners, they're in their mind, they have that the buyer is going to plunk down a lump sum for that business, and they're going to be able to walk away and be done with it. But they're, especially for small businesses, many times that's not an option. And seller financing is the way to go. And I know I got a little time, so I'm going to kind of jump on this a little bit. And if Jock was here, he would say it. He says this over and over again. Cash is king, but profits are the key to the castle. So, your business is only worth what someone else is willing and able to pay for it. And what the prospective buyer is going to do is they are going to look at that business and they are going to determine, can I make money as the owner of that business? Not can the business just be profitable, but can I make money if that is my job to own that business? And so you want to really, look at your finances as if you're somebody from the outside and thinking about, is this a good opportunity to purchase? And so how secure are the future earnings? Is the revenue consistent? And I know, Adela, I think if I recall correctly, you actually did pretty well business-wise during COVID from a revenue standpoint, correct?
That's right. I have the kind of business that when things are bad in society, our sales actually go up because they're then willing to try something in the energy line or the incense or the stones that they might not when things are going well. And I have to say, since I sold the business, the 3 staff members have been so innovative, and sales have gone through the roof.
That's
during
great.
this period.
Yeah, that's great. And a lot of times there's great opportunities for new people to come in and bring new ideas and make that happen. Absolutely. So I want to talk a little bit about valuation. And again, this is where you want to go to an expert to get that done. But for small business owners, and there's different ways to value a business, but one of the most common ways that a small business is valued is through what's called seller's discretionary earnings, or SDE. And so you'll be able to look at this slide, but basically what you're looking at are the profits of the business, salaries and benefits or perks that you're using personally. And you're not just looking at the top line revenue when you're doing valuation. So you take that seller's discretionary earnings, and then typically it's times a multiplier, which is industry determined to some extent. Something between a 1 and 3 is most common. There's a business reference guide out there that can help with this, but also, accountants and business brokers and others will, kind of help with this valuation formula. But again, I just can't stress enough that it's going to go down to what is the prospective buyer able and willing to pay for the business. So we want to, we can get hung up on valuation, but at the end of the day, it's negotiating a deal between those 2 parties and something that works and is able to be done by both parties. And then, just briefly, some of the elements of the deal. There's due diligence. So the due diligence is once you've worked out a tentative deal with the seller or the buyer, if they're smart, they're going to want to come in now and really dig into the numbers and the transactions, and they're going to want to learn as much as they can about the business to confirm that the data that you've shared with the buyer is legitimate, and also that they have a good understanding of how the business operates and generates money. So buyer due diligence is a key part of this process. When you get to that point, typically there's a non-disclosure agreement, or NDA, involved, so that the seller can be comfortable sharing confidential information with the prospective buyer. And then the one thing is that during the due diligence process, if the seller is hesitant to share information, usually from the buyer's perspective, that's a red flag. So if I'm, getting to this point and I'm interested in buying that business, then, you don't want to start to hold back information from that buyer, because basically what you're saying is, I'm hiding something and you should be worried about it. Okay, so then, you're going to make a conditional offer letter for the business. Basically you're agreeing that the seller is agreeing that everything is in the state that, that we've represented. There's going to be some limits on accounts payable and accounts receivable that can take place after the offer has been made. And this is really where you're getting an attorney involved at this point and letting the attorney manage your risk at this point on both sides. And I would also say that it's never a good idea to have an attorney represent both sides of the party, even if it is a friendly transaction. Did you? Yes.
And Harry, I was just going to say, I've just recently ran into a friend of mine who bought another business, who actually bought a business. And he didn't do a lot of these things, just that you have here. He did not do a conditional offer letter. And it was more of a handshake type situation where this is what you're going to get. And it was all kind of a verbal thing, and there wasn't a lot written down. Come to find afterwards, it was not. He didn't purchase what he thought he was buying.
Yep.
And that, I think, is a good reason to have a lot of these things in writing, have attorneys involved, because even though they did have attorneys involved, the end result, he did feel like he did not purchase what he thought he was buying.
Right. Yep. Well, you're really important to dot all the I's and cross all the T's at this point and make sure that everything is in order.
Yeah, I think it's really important to make sure that you have separate attorneys. In my case, the two attorneys knew each other and from meeting each other in court, and they had a lot of respect for each other. So they could be pretty sure that what one side was saying was authentic for the other side. It was reassuring to have somebody backing up each side that was respectable and responsible.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So really important, you don't want to, get cheap at this point and not have the right experts involved. It's not good any way around. And then, again, we've pretty much said this is leave it to the experts when you get to this point. So use the business advisor resources at the beginning of the deal or as a sounding board as you go through the deal to give you, feedback or recommendations or suggestions. But it is important that you plan to, have the right resources involved to get the deal done. And so really, basically, I just recommend that anybody that is in, at any stage of their business and wanting to know what kinds of things can I do to start to plan for a successful sale of my business, or if you're looking to purchase a business and want some guidance on, is this a good deal? How should I finance this? Or any other questions related to either end of the transaction here, is that the Small Business Development Center is a great resource as a starting point for that. So Adela, would you say overall, and I know that we were involved with you from when you first started the transaction to I've met with the new owners since after the sale, but how would you feel as far as how smooth it all went? And, was it easier than you thought, harder than you thought? What were your kind of...
I think the important factor is that we used experts at every step of the way. And it cost us a little more to have these experts involved, but I didn't have to worry, and my staff didn't have to worry that something had been left undone that was going to come back and haunt us. Because when the day was done, I like the staff members. I want to be friends with them after all of this takes place. So I didn't want any shadow of discomfort on any side. And we did achieve that through all these experts. And again, I hate to keep saying it, but again, thanks to Harriet, she always lined both sides of us up with our own people, separate, that we could trust in. It was very good all the way along the line.
Yep. And it's always exciting, for us to see a business continue operation, right? It's, we love that, to see that a business is getting another, another lease on life with a new owner. So it's exciting. And I just Adela, I would have to say, some of these things get messy and ugly and stuff, but it was just exciting to see, the way that whole thing transpired with your business. You did a good job. Your employees did a good job of doing the due diligence, and everybody kind of did what they were supposed to do. And that's what makes for a successful business sale.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, Sean, I think I pretty much covered the highlights anyway. So,
all right. I mean, it's good to see that, I don't think that's one thing that people think about when they think about their business. They don't think about exiting the business, but you really need to think about that when you start a business. You need to think it all the way through about how am I going to start it up, but at one point in time, what's my exit strategy here? How am I going to get out of this? Because like Adela said, she didn't really have one. She just thought, I'm going to work this thing until I kick the bucket. I mean, that's a quote from you, Adela. That's exactly what you said. And then all it took was one thing to, happen in your life, and you thought, I don't want to do this until then. I want to enjoy the rest of my life and without having to work all the time. So the important message here is to make sure that you plan your exit strategy even when you're planning to start the business, I think is what I got from this.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. I mean, and that's probably one of the most common mistakes is that people just don't think about it at all until either they're in a financial situation or a health situation that forces them to look at the question. And then, in Adela's case, fortunately, she had some employees that were interested and they were already, well prepared to run the business. But that doesn't happen all the time. And so when you get to that point in your life and you need or want to sell it, it's not always easy to find a buyer.
It isn't. So, ladies, thank you for joining me today and joining us and having another segment in our small business development webinars. It is always an honor and a privilege to have you guys on here. Every guest that we've had, and Dr. Jock, even though he's not here, and Harriet, you guys really do provide a lot of great services with the Small Business Development Center. So we appreciate your time very much.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. You guys, ladies, have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.